A pivot is dire for survival. Hi all, welcome to another podcast. I'm going to talk a little bit about your ability to pivot. So, quick analogy, or maybe lesson in history actually. My grandfather, I remember when I was probably about maybe 10 years old, told me a little bit. He just sat me down and he told me a little bit about Nazi concentration camps. He had basically said, what happened when I was homeschooled, so this was the first time I ever heard about World War II. And my grandfather had said, Joe, what do you think happened to the good people of Germany when they saw their country be overtaken by Nazism? And I didn't really have a question. I said, did they fight back? He said, some did. But what did the majority of people, what happened to the majority of individuals? And I didn't really have an answer for him. He said, Joe, they got out. They left Germany. And, they migrated somewhere else. The people who saw where their country was going, and they just didn't take a chance. They left and moved. Obviously, they had to have the means to do so. But long story short, they pivoted. They made a change in their lifestyle for survival, to stick around. And I can't help but to think about this current time in terms of business, but even maybe for survival, depending on your situation, with COVID and governments shutting things down. Now, I'm not a health professional. I'm not going to say that things shouldn't be shut down, but I am going to say that obviously if a mom and dad have to work to feed their kids, they should be able to go to work because getting COVID is a lower death rate than starvation. So you're absolutely certain you're going to die if you don't eat. And then there's other long-term consequences of trauma, that could occur when the family cannot provide for their children because they can't work. So what I'm going to say is basically your ability to pivot right now while things change. I'm going to say the business environment changes to adapt to working from home or working remotely is dire. And that's kind of like a high-level, vague principle, right? You should pivot. But in practical terms, what does that really mean for an individual who suddenly finds themselves out of a job or hindered by their ability to not be mobile, to not be able to go to work? And obviously I'm just an average Joe here. I can't offer you a silver bullet for solving life's problems, but I can come at this from the perspective of a person who worked a service-oriented job and transitioned into an IT job. Service-oriented meaning I worked at a restaurant. And honestly, until just last year, actually, even though I was in IT, my job still required me to physically see people, shake hands, all that fancy stuff. Have meetings in conference rooms jammed with people. Crazy things that would, stuff that would be crazy to perceive right now. Having a conference room, all of us sitting at a table with 40 individuals right next to each other. That was how life was in the business world for me, just 12 months ago, maybe even shorter than that. So we had this high-level pivot, right? So I guess like one example that I could give you as an ability to pivot is whatever you're doing, if you're providing a service, whether you're you're a gym owner, you are some type of, let's say you're in alterations. One option, one idea is you can't avoid it. You have to use the internet. That has to exist. At least right now, I don't see how anybody can run a business without some internet presence, especially if things are turned down. So if you were in alterations or if you were in any other type of service where you're like that, you have one opportunity where you can start becoming an educator in that field. There's also drop-off. So changing your business to permit drop-off for an alterations person would be something that I would think I would do. Where they could drop off their clothes. They could drop them off outside, or they can ship them, and maybe you can get a tax deduction for having people ship clothes to you. One thing that I struggle with, to be honest with you, I really struggle with this, is I was like I said, I was a restaurant server and a bartender about 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago, and that was my livelihood from being a teenager well into my mid 20s. And if a restaurant's operating at 50% capacity, what would I do? Or 25% capacity, or I think even in LA they're like shutting things down, like shutting it down. What would I do? How would I adapt? Because I wasn't an entrepreneur. I had very little money in my pocket, very little education. Well, I did have relationships though. So what I would probably do is work with the manager at that restaurant to do outdoor stuff. And since the winter time's coming, can we do car delivery stuff? You can look at Chick-fil-A for how they're doing that right now. And if the chain that I worked at wouldn't permit some type of car delivery, parking lot delivery, I'd freaking leave and go to a place that is doing that. And certainly it might be a down pay or downgrade or start over, but at least you've got something where if your restaurant shuts down, you've got 100% nothing. So that's kind of what I'd be looking to. I would also always, I always promote ongoing education. And if you have that luxury, learn a career that allows you to do something from home. There's probably customer service jobs now that are allowing you to work from home, and definitely these new regulations have made us get out of our comfort zone. So you may say, well, I'm not good at taking a test, or I'm not good at doing XYZ, and I'm just going to tell you, hey buddy, all of us have to get out of our comfort zone. If we want to survive, we all have to learn something new, and we have to fail at it and fail at it and fail at it and learn and improve in little incremental ways, but also study those failures. Don't put it off and say, oh, I've always been this way. BS. You can learn, you can grow. If you've ever seen a toddler walk, they fall down so much and they yell and they scream and they just keep getting back up. And that's kind of how we have to look at things right now, and learn new stuff. I mean, like I said, I could not imagine a world 12 months ago where I had to do everything remotely, not meeting in conference rooms, not giving large presentations, not whiteboarding. But now I'm doing everything remotely. I'm doing everything online. I've adapted. I've learned so many new tools, so many new ways of communicating to adjust for a 100% online world. And I gotta tell you, it equated to long hours, not this 9 to 5 stuff. I've had to get up early and study how to do this, and I've had to work late and study how to do that. I've had to learn how to use new remote conferencing programs and develop stuff for new remote conferencing programs. So my alternative is unemployment, and I got hungry kids. So that's kind of my message today. Learn to pivot. And I'm going to post a link to Frugal You. This is an article I wrote many years ago, actually now, and it just kind of shows you some alternative paths to learning new skills for free. I do believe the future of college, the future of education, adult education, is going to be less conventional, less formal, more decentralized, meaning instead of doing a whole degree, you just take a course by course, skill by skill, and that actually is a nice model for the future of education, because you don't have to enroll in a college. The cost is much lower. So the nice part about this COVID situation is a lot of universities now are offering courses at a discounted rate, and they're now forced to go from the physical model to the online model, which means it's accessible to more individuals, which is really good. That's a good thing. So this idea, or this principle of being able to pivot, is what I wanted to talk about. Guys, let me know if there's any struggles in transitioning to a remote-only world or a social distancing world. I will talk to you later.